I don't think this is working anymore, she said, loud enough for her little circle of friends to hear. It was a Saturday evening, and we were at a backyard barbecue hosted by one of her coworkers. Burgers were sizzling on the grill, kids were running around, and a few of us guys were standing off to the side with beers in hand. It should have been an ordinary night. Instead, my wife decided to pull the rug out from under me. The second those words left her lips, I noticed the smirks. Her friends, 3 of them, were sitting on the patio, leaning forward with the kind of anticipation you only see when people are about to watch a car crash. One of them even whispered, just loud enough for me to catch, "Let's see how he reacts." And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just her talking. This was a performance. She wasn't breaking up with me because she wanted to. She was doing it because they put her up to it. A little game. A little test to see if I'd beg, cry, or make a fool of myself in front of them all. I set my beer down slowly. My heart wasn't racing, not yet. I wasn't panicked. No, something else was brewing inside me. A cold, sharp awareness. She looked at me with feigned seriousness, her arms crossed, chin slightly lifted, as if rehearsed. "I just don't feel connected to you anymore." A couple of her friends hid their grins behind their wine glasses. They thought they were clever, sitting there like an audience waiting for the punchline. I didn't say anything at first. I just studied her. My wife of 12 years. The woman I had built a home with. The woman who, apparently, thought humiliating me in public was funny entertainment for her girlfriends. "What's wrong?" she pushed, tilting her head, clearly expecting me to stammer or plead. Still, I kept quiet, because while she was playing a game, I was calculating. You see, a man my age doesn't survive in marriage, business, or life without learning to read the room. I've sat across negotiating tables where one wrong word cost thousands of dollars. I've faced moments where silence was the sharpest weapon. And right now, silence was my ally. The laughter from across the patio grew faint. The women who had been whispering leaned closer together, waiting for me to crumble. But instead, I let the silence hang until it became uncomfortable. Then I spoke. "Are you done?" Her eyebrows shot up, thrown off by the calmness of my tone. "Excuse me?" I asked. I said, keeping my voice steady. "Are you finished with your little performance?" Her friends froze. The smirks vanished instantly. I leaned back in my chair, slow and deliberate, locking eyes with my wife. Because I know exactly what this is. A show. A game. A fake breakup to see if I'll fall apart in front of your friends. Am I right? The air shifted. The patio that had been buzzing with chatter moments ago went eerily quiet. The only sound was the faint pop of the grill behind us. My wife's face flushed. She hadn't expected me to call her out. Not like this, not so directly. One of her friends tried to jump in, voice too sweet to be genuine. "Oh, come on, it was just a joke. Don't take it so seriously." But I didn't look at her. My eyes stayed locked on my wife. "Here's the thing," I said, my voice low, firm, every word cutting through the evening air like a blade. "You wanted to test me. You wanted to embarrass me. But you made one mistake." Her lips parted slightly, unsure whether to be defensive or apologetic. "What mistake?" she asked. I let a faint smile tug at my mouth. "You underestimated me." And the way her friends shifted nervously in their chairs told me that for the first time all night, the joke wasn't on me. It was on her. But this was just the beginning. Her face twitched when I said it. That faint smile of mine rattled her more than any shouting ever could. I didn't need to raise my voice. I didn't need to slam the table. Men who lose control give away power. Men who stay calm, they terrify. Her friends exchanged quick glances. The whispering was gone now. No giggles, no smug grins. Just silence and shifting in their seats. "You think I underestimated you?" she asked, her tone brittle. She tried to laugh it off, but it came out shaky. "I don't think," I replied evenly. "I know." I leaned forward, folding my hands slowly on the table. "You thought I'd panic. Maybe beg. Maybe storm off and make a fool of myself. That's what you and your friends were waiting for, wasn't it?" Her cheeks flushed crimson. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her friends suddenly found their wine glasses very interesting. "Let me save you the trouble," I continued, my voice low enough that everyone leaned in to hear. "I don't beg. I don't panic. And if you really wanted a breakup, you'd find out real fast who would come out of it looking foolish." That hit home. She stiffened in her chair, her hands tightening on the armrest. One of her friends, the boldest of the bunch, tried to throw her a lifeline. "Oh, come on," she said, forcing a smile. "It was just a joke. Don't be so serious." I finally shifted my gaze to her. "A joke?" I asked quietly. "A marriage isn't a punchline. A man's dignity isn't a game. You don't test loyalty by pretending to throw it away." The woman looked down, muttering something into her glass. I turned back to my wife. "You wanted to see how I'd react. Here's how. I don't fight for attention. I don't play games. If you want to walk out, the door's right there. But don't expect me to chase after you." Her lips trembled. For the first time, she looked unsure. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. In her mind, I was supposed to sputter, to plead, to crumble under the weight of her words. Instead, I'd flipped the script entirely. I leaned back again, calm as ever. "Funny thing is," I added, "I was planning on surprising you tonight. I've been working late, not for myself, but for us. But clearly, your little show mattered more than what I've been building." Her eyes darted toward her friends, desperate for someone to jump in, to defend her. But they stayed quiet. They weren't laughing anymore. They were watching a woman lose control of a game she thought she had rigged. "Do you know what I see right now?" I asked her, letting the silence stretch a beat longer than comfortable. "What?" she whispered. "I see a woman who thought she was clever and ended up humiliating herself in front of the very people she wanted to impress." Her jaw clenched. Her friends shifted uncomfortably, and I knew, in that moment, the balance of power had completely shifted. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. Because if she wanted to play games, I had my own move ready. And this one would leave her reeling. The silence was heavier than the summer heat. The only sounds were the grill popping and a child's laughter echoing faintly from the yard. Everyone on that patio was waiting, not for her next line, but mine. She tried to regain footing, brushing her hair back with a shaky hand. "You're overreacting," she muttered. "It was just a little experiment." "Experiment?" I echoed, tilting my head. "What are we, a lab project now?" Her friends shifted in their seats. The bravest of them coughed out a weak laugh, hoping to lighten the mood, but it died quickly when I didn't smile. I leaned forward again, my elbows on my knees. "You wanted to see how I'd react to losing you. Fine, let's play it your way." Her eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" I let my voice drop, calm but firm. "Let's pretend this is real. You're ending things. You're walking away. What happens then?" The question hung in the air like a storm cloud. I tapped a finger against the table slowly, deliberately. "Do you think your friends here will still admire you when the truth comes out? That you threw away a good man, a good home, a good life, all for a joke?" One of her friends cleared her throat, but no words followed. I continued, my tone still measured. "Do you know what my reaction would actually be if this breakup were real?" Her lips parted, but no sound came. The tension in her face said she wasn't sure she wanted to hear the answer. I let out a slow breath and leaned back, projecting the kind of composure that makes people lean in closer. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't fight. I'd say, "Thank you." Her eyes widened. "What?" I nodded. "I'd thank you for showing me exactly who you are. Because a man doesn't need to waste another year of his life with someone who thinks humiliating him in front of an audience is funny." Her friends froze. The smirks were gone, replaced by darting eyes and uncomfortable fidgets. I pressed on. "I'd thank you for making my choice easy. Divorce lawyers love cases like this. Judges love them even more. And when the dust settled, I'd walk away with my head high, my dignity intact, and the respect of anyone who mattered." I paused, letting her sit with it. "And you? You'd be left with whispers. The woman who tried to humiliate her husband and ended up humiliating herself." Her face drained of color. She looked around desperately, but none of her friends rushed to her side. The same women who egged her on now wanted nothing to do with the wreckage. I picked up my beer again, took a slow sip, and set it back down. "So if you're serious about this little breakup," I said softly, "say the word. But if you're not, you might want to think real hard about the company you keep and the games you play." The silence that followed was absolute. Her hands trembled slightly in her lap. For the first time in years, she looked small, and I could feel the balance tipping completely in my favor. But I wasn't going to end it here. Not yet. Because she wanted a reaction. And the reaction I had planned would leave her humiliated in a way none of them would forget. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She looked around that patio for support, but her friends wouldn't meet her eyes. They had been so eager when this little test began. Now, they were shrinking in their chairs like kids caught sneaking candy. You wouldn't really, she whispered, her voice trembling. I leaned back, my expression steady, controlled. Wouldn't what? Walk away? Believe me, if I ever needed proof of what kind of woman you are, you just handed it to me on a silver platter. One of her friends tried to interject, her voice thin and nervous. He's just upset, don't. I raised a hand slightly, and she went quiet. I didn't have to shout. I didn't even have to glare. When a man speaks with certainty, people listen. You want to see my reaction to a breakup? I said slowly, letting my words fall heavy into the silence. Here it is. I shifted in my chair, leaned forward slightly, and spoke directly to my wife, but loud enough that every woman on that patio could hear. If you told me right now that this marriage was over, I wouldn't fight it. I wouldn't beg you to stay. I'd thank you. And then I'd make sure that every one of your little friends here knew exactly what kind of woman you really are. Not a victim. Not a poor, lonely wife stuck with a bad man. No, a woman who thought humiliating her husband in public would make her look powerful. Her face flushed crimson. Stop, she muttered, her voice breaking. But I wasn't stopping. Not now. Do you know what I'd do next? I asked, my tone calm, conversational, almost casual, the way you might describe a recipe. I'd walk away. I'd pour myself into work, into my life, into building something better. And you? You'd be the woman everyone remembers for this night. The woman who thought her husband would fall apart, and instead watched him stand taller than she ever expected. Her friends exchanged uneasy glances. The bold one finally whispered, maybe this went too far. I locked eyes with my wife. Yes, I said firmly. It went too far the moment you decided your marriage was a party trick. You thought you were clever, but all you've done is show everyone here that you don't respect me, or yourself. Her mouth quivered, tears beginning to rim her eyes. The performance had flipped. She was the one on stage now, with an audience watching her unravel. I leaned back, picked up my beer, and let the silence hang for a long beat. Then I added, almost gently, so thank you. Thank you for this little test. Because now everyone here knows the truth, about you, about us, and about me. And I think we can all agree. I looked around at her friends, who were frozen in their chairs. The only person who looks weak tonight isn't me. The hush that followed was deafening. Even the children's laughter from the yard seemed distant. My wife sat there trembling, humiliated in front of the very friends who had dared her into this charade. And I knew, deep down, this wasn't the end. This was only the beginning. She sat frozen, blinking rapidly as though tears might undo what had just happened. Her friends were stiff in their chairs, pretending to sip wine they no longer wanted. Nobody laughed. Nobody whispered. The game had collapsed, and she was the only one left standing in the wreckage. Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling but defiant. You're twisting it. It was just a joke. They told me it would be funny. The moment she said it, I caught the flicker of panic in her friends' faces. She had just thrown them under the bus. Oh, I said calmly, glancing at the women on the patio. So this wasn't your idea? You needed an audience to pull it off? Her friend in the blue sundress shifted uncomfortably. We were just messing around. We didn't think it'd get ugly. I finished for her. That's the problem with games like this. They always get ugly, because they're built on disrespect. I let my words hang, steady and deliberate. My wife shrank back, realizing she'd not only humiliated herself, but exposed her friends as co-conspirators. I took a slow sip of my beer and set it back down. I've got no issue with jokes, I said evenly. I can take humor as well as the next man. But when a wife decides her marriage is the punchline, that's not comedy. That's tragedy. The women fidgeted, none daring to meet my gaze. My wife's lips trembled. You're making this bigger than it is. No, I corrected softly. You made it bigger when you turned it into a spectacle. In front of your friends. In front of me. And the irony is, you're the only one who ended up embarrassed. Her eyes darted to her circle, desperate for reassurance. But none came. They sat rigid, their earlier smugness replaced with awkward guilt. Ladies, I said, my tone calm, almost polite, I hope you're enjoying the show. Because that's what this was meant to be, wasn't it? A performance. A chance to see me squirm. Well, you've seen the opposite. You've seen exactly how a man handles himself when pushed into a corner. Not one of them spoke. Not one dared to smirk. I stood then, slow and deliberate, and adjusted my jacket. If you'll excuse me, I think I've had enough entertainment for one night. Her hand shot out, gripping my wrist. Wait, don't leave like this. Please. For a moment, I studied her. The same woman who had so confidently declared a breakup minutes ago was now begging me not to walk away. I leaned down just enough that only she could hear. This is what you wanted to test, isn't it? To see if I'd fall apart? Now you know. I don't. Her grip loosened. I straightened, gave the group one last calm nod, and stepped back toward the house. Behind me, the silence was deafening. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Because the real fallout wasn't what happened at that barbecue. It was what would happen after, when her friends started whispering about her. The next morning, the house was unusually quiet. She moved around the kitchen with her back to me, banging cabinet doors a little too hard, acting as though she were busy. But I could see it in her posture. She was rattled. She hadn't slept much. I knew because I hadn't either. Every time I shifted in bed, I felt her staring at the ceiling, replaying the night in her head. She wasn't thinking about me. She was thinking about them, her friends, the audience who watched her little trick backfire. When my phone buzzed around 10, I didn't even need to look to know who it was. One of her so-called supporters. Morning, John, the message read. It was from Megan, the one in the sundress. Hey, sorry about last night. Things got out of hand. I set the phone down and sipped my coffee, saying nothing. She noticed, of course. Her eyes flicked toward me, searching my face for any hint of reaction. Another buzz. Another message. This time from Carla, the bold one who'd tried to laugh it off. Didn't mean to stir things up. Hope no hard feelings. I let the phone sit on the counter. Didn't reply, because I knew what was happening. The women who encouraged her were now scrambling to distance themselves from the mess. And they'd do it the only way they knew how, by whispering about her. By afternoon, she had proof. She came storming into the living room with her phone clutched in her hand, cheeks red. They're talking about me, she hissed. I glanced up from the newspaper. Of course they are. She froze. What do you mean, of course they are? I folded the paper calmly. What did you think would happen? You tried to put on a show at my expense. You thought you'd laugh when I crumbled. Instead, you're the one who crumbled. And they saw it. They'll tell the story a dozen different ways, but the ending is always the same. You looked like a fool. Her mouth opened and shut like she was searching for a defense. None came. She sank into the armchair, scrolling furiously through her phone, muttering under her breath. I knew exactly what she was reading. Texts. Group chats. Women who once whispered encouragement, now whispering gossip. They're making it sound like I was cruel, she said finally, her voice cracking. Like I tried to humiliate you for fun. I raised an eyebrow. And isn't that exactly what happened? Her face twisted, and for a moment, she looked ready to lash out. But then her shoulders slumped. She had no defense, and we both knew it. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. This is the part you didn't think about. The reaction after the reaction. You wanted to test me. Instead, you tested them. And now you've failed in front of your own friends. Her eyes filled with tears, she tried to blink away. I didn't mean for it to get this bad. Of course you didn't, I said, standing up. That's the problem with these little games. They always spiral out of control. The difference is, I don't need to lift a finger. The damage is already done. I walked past her toward the kitchen, leaving her trembling in that chair. Because what she didn't realize yet was that this humiliation wasn't temporary. The whispers had just begun, and they were only going to grow louder. By the end of that week, the shift was impossible to ignore. Her phone, once buzzing day and night with messages from her little group, was strangely quiet. No cheerful wine night, invitations, no endless chatter about neighborhood gossip. Just silence. She tried to hide it from me at first, tapping her phone like she was busy, scrolling through old threads to make it look like she was keeping up with conversations. But I noticed the way her jaw tightened each time her screen stayed blank. On Thursday evening, she broke. She slammed her phone on the counter and muttered, "They've shut me out." I looked up from my coffee. Have they? They canceled girls' night, she snapped. Said everyone's too busy, but I know better. Megan said she and Carla had dinner together. Didn't even invite me. I raised an eyebrow. Strange. Weren't those the same two who cheered the loudest when you staged your little performance? Her face flushed. They're making me sound like some monster. Like I was. She cut herself off, shaking her head. Cruel? I finished for her. Because that's how it looked. That's how it sounded. You didn't just embarrass yourself in front of them. You embarrassed them too. They thought they were part of a clever joke, but now it's their reputations tangled up with yours. She sat down heavily, staring at the floor. For once, she didn't argue. The following weekend proved my point even further. We went to another backyard gathering, same neighborhood, different host. Normally, she'd walk in, greeted with hugs, pulled into circles of chatter. But this time, smiles were polite, distant. Conversations shifted the moment she approached. I watched her try to insert herself into a group of women near the buffet table. They nodded, offered forced smiles, but within 2 minutes, the group dispersed, leaving her standing there with a plate of food she no longer wanted. Meanwhile, something unexpected happened to me. A man I barely knew, a husband who usually kept to himself, walked over and handed me a beer. "You handled yourself well last week," he said quietly, nodding. "Most guys would have lost it." Respect. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. I just clinked his bottle with mine and said, "Appreciate it." Because that was the real twist. While she lost credibility among her friends, I had gained respect among the men. They'd seen the whole thing play out. They knew I didn't shout, didn't crumble, didn't beg. I stood firm. By the time we got home that night, she was quiet, her shoulders slumped. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head. For the first time, she realized what her little stunt had cost her. Not just pride, but her place in the very circle she had tried to impress. And I knew the final piece was still to come. Because humiliation has layers. First the silence, then the whispers, and then, finally, the truth she couldn't run from. It came 2 weeks later, on a Friday night. She was pacing the living room, glancing at her phone like a gambler waiting for the winning number. Her circle had grown cold, her invitations dried up, and now the silence was deafening. Finally, she broke. "They're talking about me behind my back," she said, her voice tight with desperation. I didn't look up from my book. Of course they are. That's what people do when someone hands them gossip wrapped with a bow. She bristled. "You don't care at all, do you?" I set the book down, folded my hands, and looked her in the eye. "You want to know the truth?" "No, I don't. Because I didn't create this. You did. You thought humiliating your husband was entertainment. You thought your friends would cheer. Now you've learned what real humiliation feels like." Her eyes welled. "So that's it. You just want to see me suffer?" I shook my head slowly. "No, I don't want to see you suffer. I want you to learn. A man's dignity isn't a toy. A marriage isn't a stage. And respect, once broken, takes more than apologies to rebuild." She sat heavily on the couch, covering her face. I was stupid. I thought it would be funny. They dared me. They said, "Let's see how he reacts." I just wanted to show them I was in control. I leaned forward, my voice calm but sharp. "And what did you show them instead?" She dropped her hands, her face streaked with tears. "That I don't respect the one person who's always been on my side." Silence stretched between us. For once, she wasn't defending, wasn't blaming. She was admitting. I stood, grabbed my jacket, and walked toward the door. She panicked. "Where are you going?" I paused, hand on the knob. "Out," I said simply. Her voice cracked. "Will you come back?" I turned, holding her gaze. "That depends on whether you ever come back too. The woman I married, not the one who thought tearing me down in public would make her look strong." I left her sitting there, trembling, staring at the closed door. And that night, as I walked down the quiet street under the glow of porch lights, I realized something important. I hadn't needed to shout. I hadn't needed revenge. I had simply told the truth, calmly, in front of the very audience she wanted to impress. And in doing so, I gave her the one thing she thought she could hand to me, humiliation. Only now it was hers to carry. The whispers never stopped. Her circle never fully welcomed her back. And every time someone asked me about that night, I told the story the same way. She wanted to see how I'd react. I showed her. Because a man's dignity isn't measured in how loud he yells or how hard he fights. It's measured in how he refuses to bow when someone tries to make him small. And in the end, that's exactly what left her humiliated in front of them all.